All right, another SEC preview we've got right now. It is the Texas Longhorns, who were finally back last year, Dawn. They went 12-2. They made the college football playoff. They lost in the semifinal to Washington. Right now, they're the number 2 team in PFF's power rankings, so they should be, once again, a national title contender next year. Obviously, they lose a lot of offensive talent at receiver and running back as well, but you got Quinn Ewers coming back. You brought in some transfer receivers, still have a loaded group at running back. They still have a good defense, I think, at all 3 levels as well. So they should expect Dalton to still be, now in the SEC, their first year in the SEC, should still be one of the top teams in college football, honestly.
No, you're right. They should firmly have playoff expectations. And you mentioned about losing a lot of that supporting cast, right? We saw Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell and Jonathan Brooks and Jatavion Sanders all get drafted, and yet they find a way to go and replace them in the transfer portal with guys who are just, darn near as productive, if not more productive, right? Isaiah Bond is a terrific fit for their offense with his speed. Silas Bolden from Oregon State that they got is a very underrated player. He's one of those just speed players. He's not quite as fast, obviously, as Xavier Worthy, but I think he's going to play a very similar role. And I think the breakout tight end in college football this year is going to be Amari Niblack. Yeah. He's a wicked athlete who just didn't get the ball quite enough at Alabama last year. I think he's a perfect fit for everything Steve Sarkisian wants at a tight end. And I think he's going to get flashbacks to his Alabama days when he used to see O.J. Howard. So, this supporting cast for Texas is still really good. Not to mention C.J. Baxter in the backfield when Jonathan Brooks got hurt last year just did a spectacular job. He wasn't a guy that made our top 10 just because we haven't seen enough from him, but he could very well be there by the end of the year. He's probably in line for a huge year. So the supporting cast around Quinn Ewers is still a strength for this team despite losing all that talent in the draft.
Yeah, they have a top 5 offensive line in the country, too. So, I mean, it's like everything around Quinn Ewers is excellent. So, I think their biggest weakness, Dalton, is probably their pass defense. They were 59th in coverage grade last year. Against the better teams on the schedule, too, they were a lot worse than that as well. So, obviously, they have guys that they like to develop, right? Malik Muhammad, who we'll talk about later on, is sophomore corner for them. I think is a really, really good player. They brought in Andrew Makuba, really good safety from Clemson. And they'll need to improve the secondary overall. But you lose T'Vondre Sweat, you lose Byron Murphy, 2 outstanding defensive tackles who really were great pass rushers as well. You're going to need guys like Alfred Collins to step up. You're going to need a guy like Trey Moore, the transfer from UTSA, to immediately contribute as well, as really like their only proven pass rushers right now. So the pass defense for Texas, I don't think is terrible. I actually like their secondary a good bit, but there is a bit of a question with Texas after you lose some guys like that. So their pass defense is going to be a little bit interesting heading into 2024.
No, it sure is. And as long as they can get their defense to a solidly just more consistent level against the elite teams, they're going to be in SEC contention, playoff contention, national title contention. But, rolling back to their offense, this is going to be the core of it. And the spotlight, especially with the guy sitting behind him, is going to be on Quinn Ewers, right? And you've got a guy who at times has flashed like he's maybe the best quarterback or if not a top 3 quarterback in the country. And the total production would still tell you he is. It's just, you're looking for, like, if you watched him play Alabama the last 2 years, you'd go, wow, that's the best quarterback in the country. He did. Yeah, absolutely. But then you just see times where it's just like doesn't always give you that high end, like how certain guys bring it every single week. Like last year, like a Jaden Daniels brings it every single week, right? Where with Quinn, okay, so what is he good at? He runs Steve Sarkisian's system to borderline perfection, right? He had the 8th best play action grade in the country. They run a top 10 rate of play action. Then you're talking about all of the RPO stuff. He's a master of it, and Sark uses it a ton. Getting the ball to his playmakers, operating from within the pocket. One of the best intermediate throwers, one of the best touch throwers in the entire country, right? The Quinn Ewers highlights are as good as anybody in the country, right? And he's clearly one of the probably 6 or 7 best quarterbacks. We could have arguments about the high end and how often he brings it and all that. But that's really what it is. Can he have a Heisman type of season? Because with a new supporting cast and a defense that is, we don't know if it'll be better than last year, right? You still lost T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. Quinn Ewers has to be the centerpiece of it all. And the pressure cooker is going to be on quick. They go to Michigan in week 2. Arch Manning is sitting behind him with his massive NIL deal and now an EA deal and all that stuff, all the hype surrounding the Manning name. But Quinn, he's going to give you a high floor. You do know what you're going to get. Is there more, though? Is there something more in certain moments where he's more than an A-? That, to me, is going to be the biggest question with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the cover athlete of EA College Football 25 as well. A lot of pressure will be on him in 2024, but not really a lot of pressure literally, Dalton, because his star left tackle, Kelvin Banks Jr., is a superstar, man. This guy might be a top 10 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. He's been the starting left tackle for Texas in each of the last 2 years, and he's been excellent as a pass protector in that stretch. 2.5% pressure rate allowed over the last 2 years, second among returning Power 5 tackles. Now, he's a little inconsistent in the run game, but it's not like an Olu fashion where it's actually a weakness, because he has some flashes of dominance, man, as a run blocker. He had 12 big-time blocks last year, which, if you don't know, are PFF's highest-graded blocks. 12 of them. Only Talisa Fuanga had more big-time blocks than Kelvin Banks Jr. last year. And we all talked about how dominant of a run blocker Talisa Fuanga is. Kelvin Banks Jr. is right behind him in big-time blocks, man. He's an elite athlete, and I think he's going to be a top 10 pick in the 2025 NFL draft and could be the first tackle taken. He's kind of in that running with Will Campbell from LSU, we'll talk about later as well. He is a special talent, man.
Absolutely, and it's a big part of the reason that Ewers and the offense will be able to succeed. Look, honestly, their offense won't be a huge question, right? Those weapons, we'll see how quickly they get adjusted, but they'll get adjusted. The ones you do have to adjust are the guys on defense and in their secondary. They got some new guys in Andrew Makuba, but one guy who was there last year for him at cornerback who was just spectacular was Malik Muhammad, right? Second best coverage grade among all Big 12 corners as a true freshman, 20% forced incompletion rate, an excellent athlete, just knows what he's doing out there as a true freshman, now coming up to be a true sophomore. He's really, there's certain keys where the entire unit has to get glued together. As a secondary, you're only as good as your weakest link. This guy is certainly not the weakest link, and he's going to be one of the best corners in the SEC, maybe the best corner in the SEC very, very soon. He's going to be a huge, huge key. His development, if he develops from a very good corner as a freshman into an elite one, say he has a 90 graded season, something like that, Texas is going to look a lot better and a lot more consistent in pass defense, which, as you already mentioned, is their biggest weakness. So that's going to be the thing. Are they going to be in a ton of shootouts where they have to score 40 every week? Or can this pass defense, can Malik Muhammad in this secondary maybe contain things a little bit and make life a little bit easier for him?
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit higher on their secondary, man. I think they could improve a lot, and a big reason for that is the development of Malik Muhammad, who, if he gets any better, man, than what he was as a true freshman, like, he's going to be an elite corner in college football. So I'm a huge, huge fan of his game. All right, bottom line time now, Dalton. Will it be another great year for Texas, or will they fall back to what they've been in the past? In their first year in the SEC, by the way, so going into a harder conference and playing a harder schedule, playing Michigan, playing some elite teams on their schedule. What are you expecting out of the Longhorns this year? Is this still like a national title contender, or are you thinking it's going to be a little bit of a step back for the Longhorns?
I think there's a wide range of outcomes that could occur here. I think when you're talking about, some people right now probably have them third or fourth in the country, right? I think they could make the playoff and easily contend for a national title. I don't think I would pick them to win it personally, but they could certainly contend for one. But I could also see a scenario where they miss the playoff. I mean, you're talking about a different now, an SEC schedule. You're talking about a team that they couldn't cover the better passing teams in the Big 12 last year. Now you're playing SEC competition. They have things to figure out on their defense. Like, I don't think we're going to know until a few weeks into the season if they're an inner circle national title contender. Because for me, we need to see their defense, and then it's going to be a matter of how long it takes for Quinn Ewers and the offense to adjust to all the new weapons, right? So there is a wide range of outcomes. I think from an optimist angle, they made the Final Four last year. They were one catch away from being in the title game, right? You go, they should contend for a national title with as much offensive talent as they have. I could see a scenario where they lose 2 or 3 games and miss out, though. I think there's a wider range of outcomes here than people think, but they should fully, with a 12-team playoff, I think they should certainly expect to at least be in that field, or it's going to be a little bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they play Michigan. They play Georgia as well. I think those are the only 2 teams that are in the realm of where Texas is. I mean, they do play Oklahoma, who's a solid team as well, and they play Texas A&M, who I think could be a sneaky team next year. But yeah, there's a world, man, where they lose 2 games, right? And I think that's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to see Quinn Ewers, how he handles the big house. I think in week 2, it's going to be a huge, huge game with that defense that Michigan has. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I do think it's a national title contender. I do think it's a top 5 team in the country because of how elite that offense will be, even after losing, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Ja'Tavion Sanders, Jordan Whittington, Jonathan Brooks, all the talent they lost on offense. They brought in so much talent. They have guys behind them as well. Great offensive line. The defense, though, is the big question mark. And I'm excited to see how the defense handles a Carson Beck, for example. Like, how do you handle the best quarterback in the country? That's going to be really interesting to see later on in the season in October when they play him. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a really interesting team next year, and a lot of pressure is on Quinn Ewers, which will be really, really fun to see how he handles that. But that's what we got for our preview of Texas. Again, we want to remind you, we're doing this for every single Power 4 team, all 70 of them. So if you're a fan of any of those 70 Power 4 teams, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing some Group of 5 stuff too. Don't worry about that. But make sure you subscribe to the channel. And that was our preview of the Texas Longhorns for 2024.